Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. Welcome to my channel if this is your first time here. My name is Megan and I'm the witch here around the cauldron. And today we're going to be talking about snakes. So yes, I'm going to be talking about snakes today, snakes and serpents in mythology, and then towards the end I'm going to give a little bit of my own personal UPG when it comes to snake symbolism in witchcraft and how I personally use snakeskin in some of my spells. So we know that snakes are prevalent throughout history in many different cultures around the world. I couldn't possibly cover every single one of them, and there are some of them where it would be culturally insensitive of me to do so. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna talk about snakes in Celtic mythology, snakes in Norse mythology, and snakes in Egyptian mythology. I do have a few more stories that you might find interesting linked in the description below. If I tried to include every single snake mythology or folklore in this video, it would be way too long and just, yeah, not worth the time to watch it. So we're starting with this. Maybe in the future I will revisit the subject and talk about more snake mythology, but we'll see how that goes. So of course, as a Celtic pagan, the first snake mythology I'm going to talk about is Celtic snake mythology. And both of these stories come out of Ireland because that's the mythology that I'm familiar with. I'm actually not going to talk about St. Patrick. I have a video I already did on St. Patrick that you can watch if you want. I'll leave it linked up here somewhere and in the description below. The first story that I have has a little bit to do with St. Patrick, but only a little bit. The first serpent from Irish mythology that I'm going to talk about is Coronach. I'll put it up here on the screen for you on the video. I'm not sure if I'm saying it correctly. I did try to find the proper pronunciation. So Coronach is an Irish serpent that lives in the waters of Lugh Derg in Donegal. And there's two versions of this story. The first version involves St. Patrick. It's said that St. Patrick fought her for 2 days and 2 nights before finally killing her. And the whole time they were submerged in the lake. So St. Patrick survived for 2 days and 2 nights fighting a sea serpent in Lugh Derg. There are some that say St. Patrick wasn't actually successful in killing Coronach. Instead, it's said that she's still alive and she appears at Lugh Derg during stormy weather. And what she does is she devours cattle. And so during stormy weather, she will suck men and cattle into her mouth, eating them whole. It's also said that if you saw a light in her cave, it was a sign of impending doom and that you were most likely going to die within the next year. Now, the older version of this story, and sometimes seen as one of the originals, is the story of Coronach, Fionn Michal, and his son Conan. Now this one is a little different. This story says that Conan found some bones washed up on the shore of Lugh Derg, and he was instructed to not touch them, don't break them open, because if he did so, then he would be unleashing a monster onto the world. And so what did Conan do? He broke the femur, out came Coronach. And at first she came out as like a tiny little worm, but eventually, actually quite rapidly, she grew, immediately went to the shore and swallowed Conan whole. Conan, being a warrior and one of the mythological heroes of Irish mythology, fought his way out from the inside and subsequently killed Coronach. The name of the lake, Lugh Derg, is said to actually be named after the slaying of Coronach because Lugh Derg means dark lake. And this comes from the blood that stained the lake after Coronach was killed. The second story out of Ireland comes from the gods. And this one involves Dian Cecht, one of the Tuatha De Danann, a god that is associated with healing and medicine, among other things, of course. If I'm remembering correctly, he is the physician of the Tuatha De Danann, the doctor. He actually has other stories where he is involved with creating limbs for Nuada, the king of Ireland, when he lost his arm. But that's not the story that we're talking about today. Today we are talking about the story of the Ankekt, potentially the Morrigan, and potentially a person that is a son of the Morrigan. That part's not clear. Different versions of this story say that Mechi is actually the son of the Morrigan, but there's only mention of them being related. There's only mention of Mechi being the Morrigan's son in one version of the place name poems, I believe. We're not entirely sure if Mechi is the Morrigan's son, but what we do know is that the Ankekt is responsible for the murder of Mechi for good reason. So this story comes to us from the place name poems, poem number 13, Burba. It's said that the Morrigan had a son, Mechi, and he had 3 hearts. And within each of these hearts was a serpent that, if allowed to grow to full size, would be devastating for the island of Ireland. So devastating, in fact, that he had to be killed. So the Ankekt is responsible for removing Mechi's hearts, all 3 of them, crushing them, burning the serpents, and throwing the ashes of the serpents into the Barrow River. And it's said that when the ashes got thrown into the river, because the Ankekt didn't want to throw the ashes onto the land because he was afraid of what these serpents would do, because they were so vile and so deadly that he was worried that putting the ashes of the serpents on the land was going to be devastating for the land. So instead, what he did is he tossed them in the river. This caused the river to bubble and boil and hiss because the ashes of the snakes were so poisonous and so devastating that it just changed the nature of the river at that point. So I want to read the place name poem to you. And these are really interesting to go back and read because you have to kind of interpret some of the stuff. And also you have to trust the translations, because I can't read Old Irish. I can't read Irish. And so I'm trusting these translations. This translation comes from celt.ucc.ie. This is, I believe it's part of Mary Jones's Celtic Encyclopedia online. Definitely a reliable source for texts and sources on Celtic mythology and folklore. So this is Burba, poem 13. The Barrow, enduring its silence that flows through the folk of old Alba. A labor it is to learn the cause whence is called Barrow, flower of all famous names. No motion in it made the ashes of Mechi the strongly smitten. The stream made sodden and silent past recovery the fell filth of the old serpent. 3 turns the serpent made. It sought out the soldier to consume him. It would have wasted by its nature all the kine of the indolent hosts of ancient Erin. Therefore the Ankekt slew it. There was rude reason for clean destroying it, for preventing it forever from wasting above every resort, from consuming utterly. Known to me is its grave where he cast it, a tomb without walls or roof tree. Its evil ashes, no ornament to the region found silent burial in noble Barrow. So Celtic mythology is really interesting when it comes to snakes and serpents, because sometimes they're seen as deadly and dangerous, and then other times they are seen as symbols of transformation, power, and sovereignty. And when I say Celtic, I mean all the Celtic nations, not just Ireland. So don't forget that Celtic is not a country. Now we're going to move on to Norse mythology. And I only have one, and it's pretty popular. Most people know this one, and this is going to be Jormungandr, the Midgard serpent, or the world serpent. So Jormungandr is a giant sea serpent of Norse mythology, the middle child of Loki and Angrboda. So according to the Prose Edda, Odin took Loki's 3 children, Fenrir, Hel, and Jormungandr. He tossed Jormungandr into the great ocean that encircles Midgard. This serpent grew so big that he was able to circle the entire earth and grab his own tail. As a result of this, he earned the name the Midgard serpent, because Earth is Midgard. And Jormungandr's arch nemesis, his rival, is the god Thor. And then we have some information coming from Greek mythology. And I'm not going to talk about the Gorgons. I'm not going to talk about Asclepius. I'm going to talk about something I didn't actually know. There was an earth dragon that was placed by Gaia to guard the oracles at Delphi. Her name is, so fittingly, Python. So Python was actually the chthonic enemy of Apollo. And if it wasn't for Apollo slaying Python, Apollo's oracle would not have been where it was, because he took over the oracle there after he slayed Python. So from theoi.com, which is a great resource for anyone looking for Greek mythology, it says this: Python was a monstrous dragon serpent set by Gaia to guard the sacred oracle of Delphi. According to some, the creature was born from the rotting slime left behind the great deluge. When the god Apollo laid claim to the shrine, he slew Python with a volley of 100 arrows. The oracle and festival of Delphi were afterwards named Pytho and Pythian, from the rotting corpse of the beast. Some say that Apollo slew Python to avenge his mother, because apparently Python continued to pursue Apollo's mother relentlessly during her long pregnancy. This is something I didn't know until I was doing research for this video. So if Greek mythology is interesting to you, I tend to find that Greek mythology holds serpents, I don't want to say differently, because there are more stories of serpents and snakes in Greek mythology than I could find in Celtic mythology that had a reliable source, or Norse mythology, but I don't know a lot about Norse mythology. So Greek mythology, in this story in particular, it's interesting to me that Python was placed as a guardian by Gaia. That makes a lot of sense, because Gaia is earth, Python is snake, serpent-like beast. I really love the connection in this story of the snake being protective, because I don't know if you have seen many snakes. The snakes that I have ball pythons, and they are protective to a certain extent, but they are also little babies. And if they get scared, they curl into a ball, and that's it. They stay in the ball until the threat has passed. But there are some snakes, like the black racer snakes that are native here to Florida, who they're small, but they are so mean. They are so defensive. They will stand up, for lack of a better word, and periscope, exactly like you think, like a submarine. They will be up and periscoping, and any threats, they will go on the defense, and they will strike, they will lash out, they might even chase you. So snakes being protective and guarding very important things is an interesting concept in this story, and it's one that I really enjoy because it connects back with the nature of snakes as animals. The last sort of serpent story that I'm going to talk about here comes from Egyptian mythology, and this is of the goddess Wadjet. She is said to be the matron and protector of Lower Egypt in her cobra form, and then when Egypt was united, she was protector of all of Egypt. She's generally associated with being protector of kings and women in childbirth. I would also place her as a protector of children, based on the story of Wadjet and Isis working together to protect Isis's son Horus. Now, Wadjet was very closely associated with the land itself of Egypt. She was often depicted as a snake-headed woman or a snake in general, usually a cobra, one of the most common venomous snakes in all of Egypt. And again, we see this connection here with snakes as protectors, because Wadjet is protector of kings, protector of women in childbirth, and in my opinion, also that extends to the children, protector of children, because cobras themselves are really, really dangerous, and they will strike without hesitation. Especially to protect themselves if they feel like they're in danger or the area that they're in. So those are just a couple of stories that I have found really interesting about snakes and serpents in different mythology around the world. Of course, I heavily focus on Celtic mythology. There were a lot more within Celtic mythology that I found. The problem that I find when I'm doing research on Celtic mythology is that it's really hard to find reliable sources of information. And if I'm going to look for reliable sources of information, I'm gonna have to spend hours on video notes. And right now, I just don't have that kind of time. And besides, I'm already spending hours putting notes together for a video coming up on one of the Irish gods of death. So that's coming in a couple of weeks. If you are interested in more stories from other parts of the world about serpents and snakes and mythology and folklore, I have some listed in the description below. These are going to include the Naga from Hinduism and Buddhism, and a couple of stories from China that involve snakes, serpents, and a certain snake goddess. All right, so I want to talk a little bit real quick before I end the video about my personal associations with snakes and how I sort of see them as symbols, but also how I utilize snake shed within my magical practice. Because I have snakes, and snake shed is a very potent, powerful ingredient when it comes to certain types of spells. Some of the things that I associate snakes with is transformation, absolutely, because a snake has to physically shed its skin in order to grow or transform in any sort of way. So even if a snake is injured and has some sort of damage to their scales or their skin, they will shed. If a snake is growing, they will shed. If conditions aren't right for them to shed, then it can become dangerous, and like a shed can get stuck and they need help. I can't tell you how many times I've had to give my snakes a little warm bath to try to help them get their shed off that they couldn't shed on their own. And the process of shedding for snakes is interesting anyway, because when snakes are in shed, they will rub on their habitat. They will rub on rocks and the logs and substrate and different things like that, literally scraping their old skin off of them. And if that's not a symbol of transformation and putting in the work, I don't know what is. I also connect snakes to the cycle of life, death, and rebirth. Again, usually for this process of shedding the old, but also for some of the stories that come from mythology. Snakes are very predictable when it comes to their behavior. Usually, in my experience. I'm not speaking for all snakes, of course. The snakes that I have had are very predictable in their behavior. You can always tell when they're hungry. You can always tell when they're going to shed. You can always tell when a shed is going bad. And they just repeat these cycles over and over again. And a coiled snake can be seen as a symbol of these cycles, or a spiral even, as we move through our lives like a snake in a spiral. I also associate snakes with power, because snakes are powerful. They are either constrictors or they are venomous. Usually that's how it goes. But it takes a lot of strength for a constrictor to catch its prey, so to speak. I don't want to go into all of it too much because I don't know how much you all can handle me talking about that. But snakes are powerful. They are all muscle. I have seen my snakes hold themselves off their, like the floor of their tanks, coiled up, waiting to strike their prey. And they will wait for as long as it takes until their prey comes close enough to them that they can strike. And when they strike fast. So when it comes to using snake shed in my witchcraft and my spells, those are generally the themes that I use the ingredient for. Spells regarding transformation, change, cycles, death and rebirth, anytime I need a boost of power. I've also used it for banishing and getting rid of something that someone no longer needs or something someone no longer wants in their life. Those have been really powerful spells anytime I have included snake shed in my magic. So thank you so much for watching. I hope this video was interesting to you. If you want me to focus on any specific story within mythology in regard to snakes or serpents or even anything else, I really enjoy doing this kind of research and coming on here and sharing what I learned with all of you. Let me know in the comments below. Follow me on social media, sign up for my newsletter, reach out to me on my forum or wherever else you want to reach out to me on. All of my links are in the description below. Make sure you give the video a thumbs up and subscribe if you haven't already. Check out my membership program where you get exclusive access to content before anybody else does, and a lot of other perks, including a weekly podcast just for members, courses for Plus members, and so much other stuff that I always forget it when I go to list it out because I'm really bad at promoting my work. So anyway, yes, I hope you liked the video and I will see you next time. Bye for now.